Hi friends, it's Angie. I'm going to carry on with the mammoth task of doing an audio reading of SRA survivor Fiona Barnett's book. I think it's her second book, it might be actually. She's certainly written many scholarly articles on a blog called Pedos Down Under. But this book was published last year, online, free, entitled Eyes Wide Open. And she unashamedly names people. I wasn't there, I can't vouch for that, but I do have an absolute conviction that this woman, oops-a-daisy, is telling the truth. Remind me later. So we're still recording. Judge for yourselves. This is what journalism is. Free speech is gather the information without it being censored or suppressed, and do some research yourself if you feel to. But basically ask God, is this true? How much truth is in this? Is there error? What can I do? So I salute you, Fiona, and I hope you're feeling better. Okay, here we go. We'll carry on where we were. Eyes wide open. All intelligence agencies are privately owned criminal organizations. And sadly, that seems true. There are some white hats, there are some good guys, there are some within whistleblowing and trying to overturn the corruption. Pray for them, So Dope Inc. and Ronald Bernard's testimony are consistent with the 1972 Bank, this is the one I worked for, Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI scandal. And the findings of reporter Danny Casolaro, who was, quote, suicided whilst investigating the same secret syndicate. Yeah, I worked for BCCI in London from 76 till 78, like almost 3 years. And then I went to university then, and I did summer work with them and holiday, vacation work with them. So, okay. The Manhattan District Attorney, who closed BCCI's USA branch, announced that 16 witnesses died, while investigating the BCCI's involvement in covert CIA operations, arms smuggling to Iraq, money laundering, and child prostitution. Oh my God. Danny Casolaro labeled the system the octopus and described it as follows. Wow. They're not government officials, but their tentacles can reach into any part of the government in almost any country, including legitimate and rogue spy networks. They are not notable industrialists, but they can pull the strings of the oil and banking empires at will. They are not known criminals, but they successfully penetrated all factions of organized crime, including the mafia, the Japanese Yakuza, the secret Chinese triads, and the terrorist underground. Casolaro linked the octopus to people, places, and activities consistent with my experience, says Fiona. His notes and phone records reference drug trafficking, money laundering, Mossad, CIA, shellfish-based bioweapons, genetic engineering, Nicaragua, Watergate, Australia's Nugent Hand Bank, Pine Gap, MJ12, and Area 51. This bizarre combination of diverse and seemingly unrelated research topics only makes sense within the context of witness testimonies like mine and mine. I can pull together every single one of these topics and explain their solid relationship. Yeah, and with regard to BCCI, check out my video YouTube archives, both channels. The best way to understand the global child trafficking industry is to trace the history of the drug trafficking industry. Yeah, this is huge. As you read Dope Inc., cross out the word drugs, and replace it with the word kids. Fiona says kids, but like that's got connotations of satanic stuff. Kids are baby goats, you know. They're not sacrifice material. To gain a picture of the child trafficking network that traded me, says Fiona. Like the drug trade, the child sex trafficking industry is run as a single integrated world operation. At the top sit the wealthy elite who maintain control by ensuring only blackmailed, compromised politicians, military brass, and government officials occupy leadership. The secret services, including ASIO, MI6, and the CIA, coordinate the child trafficking and human compromise operation. Think Hampstead. Receive the victims, think Epstein, you know, just goes on. Receive the victims procured via the little men, modify the behavior of child victims until they become suitable assets, and transport the trained victims nationally and internationally to service VIP pedophiles. Child trafficking is run as a single integrated world operation coordinated by the CIA. Operation Mockingbird. In 1977, Watergate investigative journalist Carl Bernstein said the CIA had recruited over 400 American journalists. How disgusting is that? But they used to do that at my university. University of Warwick was a recruiting ground for the United Nations. I've got many people I went to university with. Even one person I got a job for with the president of BCCI, Aga Hassan Abadi, who's one of the Council of 1,000 or 1,100, whatever it's called. I got him a summer job as his chauffeur in London. Aga Hassan Abadi, the head office in England of BCCI was 100 Leadenhall Street, EC1. And yeah, this guy was my boyfriend. And he wanted us to go to America for the summer. And I said, I have to work to see my way through university. So we didn't go on the dream holiday to America. And so as a kind of compensation, I said to him, look, I can get you a job in London if you want. He ended up as personal chauffeur to Aga Hassan Abadi of BCCI. And he now works for the United Nations. And sadly, I suspect is deep state. Allsop is one of more than 400 American journalists who in the past 25 years have secretly carried out assignments for the CIA, according to documents on file at CIA headquarters, Central Intelligence Agency. Some of these journalists' relationships with the agency were tacit, but some were explicit. There was cooperation, accommodation, and overlap. Journalists provided a full range of clandestine services, from simple intelligence gathering to serving as go-betweens with spies in communist countries. Reporters shared their notebooks with the CIA. Was that what I was doing with Brian Hurl? Is Brian Hurl MI6? I don't know. Editors shared their staffs. Some of the journalists were Pulitzer Prize winners, distinguished reporters who considered themselves ambassadors without portfolio for their country. Most were less exalted. Foreign correspondents who found that their association with the agency helped their work. Yeah. Stringers and freelancers who were as interested in the daring do of the spy business as in filing articles. And the smallest category, full-time CIA employees masquerading as journalists abroad. Don't we have a lot of that online now? In many instances, CIA documents show journalists were engaged to perform tasks for the CIA with the consent of the management of America's leading news organizations. Another friend of mine from Warwick University lives in Sri Lanka now. And she's head of gender issues, women's issues with the United Nations or something. And it's like, we reconnected on Facebook, and then I shared with her my work, and she told me what hers was, and there wasn't much left to say. It was just like, it's like we're on different sides of a chasm, you know. This CIA operation was called Mockingbird. Australia and the UK have their own network of Mockingbird journalists, which sprung to the defence of Westminster VIP paedophiles. Absolutely. It's almost entirely, it's hard to find an honest journalist in the mainstream media anymore. Right, PI, Paedophile Information Exchange. In 1971, an Adelaide barrister from the Communist Party of Australia created the precursor to what later became the Paedophile Information Exchange. I didn't know that. This lawyer was the late Elliot Johnson. The Paedophile Information Exchange was formed from earlier paedophile groups such as the Lewis Carroll Collectors Guild, oh God, and the Homosexual Peter Pan Club. Another founder of this organization from the Peter Pan Club was Frank Houston, oh yes, of Hillsong Church, who also founded the pseudo church, the Assembly of God. I didn't know he was the founder of the Assemblies of God. I knew he was Hillsong. My God. Right, sorry guys, getting triggered here. Houston was pastor of the Surrey Hills Christian Centre, which later morphed into Hillsong Church. Houston was an organizer for the Peter Pan Club when he was contacted by Elliot Johnson and asked to assist in forming a, quote, united front for organized paedophilia. Jesus. I mean that in the most respectful way, Jesus. This resulted in the formation of the Paedophile Information Exchange in February 1973. This organization was then exported to the United Kingdom. See, Australia's a petri dish. Australia's an outpost. It's a colony. It's part of the Five Eyes. It's where the Brits sent convicts and alleged orphans and did all sorts of, with the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church, and did all sorts of horrors far, far away, And they, even today, they're rolling out this pandemic and, dive for the New World Order. They roll it out first in countries like Australia. It's just heartbreaking. The above is an excerpt from correspondence I received, says Fiona Barnett, in 2017. PI, Paedophile Information Exchange, campaigned for the social and legal acceptance of pedophilia. Yes, they did. We want to dispel the myths connected with paedophilia. This is from their literature, and show that most paedophiles desire gentle, loving, and mutually pleasurable relationships. This sickens me. We believe it's inhumane to children to outlaw their sexuality, and we support moves to lower the age of consent. Of course they do. As a child abuse survivor and an MK Ultra survivor, I'm telling you, a child cannot consent and are hugely subject and manipulated by grooming, which these paedophiles know. PI promised reducing the age of consent to age 4 years. Think Harriet Harman, think Patricia Hewitt, think Mel V. Their motto was sex before 8, before it's too late. Jesus. PI produced a magazine, Understanding Paedophilia, which contained articles written by psychologists. PI was affiliated with the UK National Council for Civil Liberties, think Harriet Harman, think Patricia Hewitt, and backed by the Campaign for Homosexual Equality. Do you know, the gay community is so upset by the paedophile community trying to piggyback on their woundedness. It's just, the UK government gave pie grants totaling up at least £70,000 sterling, which is true, yeah, that's absolutely true. Via the Home Office, yeah, probably Leon Britton in charge at the time, or similar, between 1977 and 1980. Pi membership exceeded 1,000 by the early 1980s to include, now listen to this people and ask yourself, why there's child trafficking and no justice, to include judges, politicians, scoutmasters, head teachers, diplomats, aristocrats, intelligence agents, and child protection experts. Notable Pi members were Prime Minister Edward Heath, regularly attended Pi meetings in Westminster, Richard Morris Clive Bigham, son of Viscount Mersey, convicted of raping his sisters aged 6 and 10. Sir Peter Hayman, is it great uncle or second cousin of Ian Puddick, senior diplomat, British High Commissioner to Canada, Foreign Office Minister in 1981. No, Foreign Office Minister. In 1981, MP Geoffrey Dickens used parliamentary privilege to expose information that Thatcher had suppressed. Hayman sent pornographic material through the post. Dickens consequently received death threats and was burgled. Geoffrey Arthur Prime, British intelligence officer, Soviet spy, convicted in 1982 of raping 3 girls. Peter Wrighton, Pi founder, the UK's most senior child social worker, scapegoat for the entire VIP network, and as far as I know, his teachings are still part of the syllabus training social workers in British universities to this day. And Charles Napier, Pi treasurer and a school teacher. There's audio recordings between Charles Napier and Peter Wrighton that will churn your stomach. Churn your stomach. These children in public, private, posh boarding schools, they had no chance, especially the vulnerable ones, no chance. Moral panic. Peter Wrighton was charged and cautioned for raping a boy in 1960. Now, he was a great friend of Barbara Kahan. Think Hampstead, think Finchley Road. And yet she said decades later, she had no idea. She had no idea that her good friend Peter Wrighton was a paedophile. He was cautioned, he was charged and cautioned for raping a boy in 1960. In a 1981 publication, Perspectives on Paedophilia, Wrighton attacked the, quote, moral panic over paedophilia and said with, quote, the child's willing compliance, the sex is unlikely to do much harm. Jesus. The UK's top social worker and child protection expert, Wrighton, served as Director of the National Children's Bureau Charity, Director of the National Institute for Social Work, and consultant for the National Children's Bureau. Do you see how they put them in places of power and influence? Do you see how our institutions have been infiltrated by paedophiles? My God. In 1992, Peter Wrighton was convicted of possessing hardcore child abuse porn obtained from Amsterdam. Police also found a diary containing, quote, scores of boys whom investigators believed Wrighton had sexually abused. At the time of his arrest, Wrighton lived with his gay paedophile partner at the 2,500-acre estate of Lord John and Leslie Henniker Major. Isn't that where Harvey Proctor lives? I don't know. Let's see. Which operated as a, quote, educational and recreational centre for children. The London Borough of Islington sent children to the Henniker estate. Of course they did. With Margaret Hodge and Tony Blair, what else could they do? Under a scheme called the Islington Suffolk Project. I lived in Suffolk. Fiona's got all her footnotes and references. This is impeccable, guys. I'll put the link in the description box to the free PDF. Hundreds of Islington children holidayed at the Henniker estate since the 1970s. Islington was implicated in child trafficking. Jimmy Savile raped kids on Islington, where 14 investigations revealed paedophiles operated all 24 children's homes in Islington. All 24 children's homes were operated by paedophiles. Let that sink in, people. Operation Fairbank was established in 2012 to investigate allegations against Peter Wrighton and his connections. During the 1992 raids on Wrighton, police found 25 years, that's what I've heard, of correspondence between Wrighton and paedophiles in Britain and around the world. Police found a letter from Charles Napier to Wrighton boasting of his life in Cairo as a British Council teacher, how Cairo was, quote, full of boys, 98% of them available, and how Napier could send child pornography to Britain in diplomatic bags. Charles Napier fled England for Cairo in 1972 after being banned from teaching in the UK for indecently assaulting pupils at a Surrey school. In 1995, Charles Napier was convicted of the historical rape of a boy. Police evidence included letters exchanged between Napier and Wrighton about the availability of boys in Sweden, plus a 1978 film showing Napier and Wrighton with boys in Sweden. Sorry, guys, this is hard to read, but I'm just gonna, you just have to forgive my humanity because I want a cigarette. I'm gonna put this on pause. I'll be back. This is so important. And this is where you see that it's not, God, where's the share screen? I hope it's been recording all this time, but it hasn't. I bet it hasn't. Oh, God, it hasn't been recording. It is recording. Right. Sorry, guys. It's a miracle. Survivors made it. Many didn't and committed suicide or died in addiction. Right. Here we go. We should be so grateful. This is an Australian survivor covering what went on in the UK and America, because this is global, people. This is global. Okay, Elm Guest House. Operation Fernbridge was an Operation Fairbank offshoot. It focused on Elm Guest House, southwest London, a gay brothel where VIP paedophiles preyed on young boys, supplied from local care homes. Supplied, do you hear that word? It's just horrific. Rent boy candidates were identified from school magazine photos and forced into foster care by government social workers like Peter Wrighton. Multiple boy brothel victims identified VIP Elm Guest House clients, including politicians, police, royal family, employees, British intelligence, military, and pop stars. Yeah, who was Gary Kelly of the Sinn Féin? Cliff Richard obtained a High Court injunction to prevent the media naming him as an Elm Guest House client, codenamed Kitty. The media instead named Cliff Richard for sexually assaulting a boy at Billy Graham's 1985 crusade in Sheffield, forcing him to relocate to paedophile-friendly Portugal, where Madeleine McCann disappeared. I think Cliff Richard is now a citizen of the Bahamas or Barbados, something like that, where there's no extradition. Multiple victims named Prime Minister Edward Heath, I think up to 17 credible witnesses, and Home Secretary Leon Britton, and I've had more than one disclosure about him to me personally, as Elm Guest House clients. I've also seen a photograph of Leon Britton wearing a French maid's outfit with a little naked boy on his lap. I've seen a photograph of Kenneth Clarke, former MP, Bilderberger, you know, cousin to the Queen, blah, blah, you know, with another little boy on his lap who looks awfully like them fellows. I offered to share these photographs with Exaro News when I still thought they were the good guys, and they were very cagey and said, oh no, oh no, oh no, I think they've been debunked. I don't think so. Okay. The media instead named Cliff Richard for, Billy Graham's conference, right? Multiple victims named, Prime Minister Edward Heath, Leon Britton, In November 1983, Geoffrey Dickens MP gave Leon Britton a, quote, massive dossier on child abuse containing specific allegations about a link between Pye and Buckingham Palace staff, Foreign Office staff, and the civil service. Dickens gave Britton a second dossier. So get this, Leon Britton managed to lose 2 dossiers. I think Theresa May did that as well. I think the ICSA did that as well. There's a pattern here, people. So a massive dossier, okay. Dickens gave Britton a second dossier in 1984, alleging child abuse in a children's home and naming prominent paedophiles, including a BBC TV executive. Leon Britton investigated nothing because he was one of them. Spartacus. Elm Guest House ran an advertisement in the Spartacus International Gay Guide, paedophile magazine, which offered a 10% discount to Spartacus Club members. What these people think they're buying? These are children. They're not chickens from Aldi or books off Amazon. 10% discount. You guys are so sick. According to Australian police detectives, Spartacus was code name for an international underground paedophile network. Spartacus Club, part of the British registered Spartacus International, was run by paedophile Catholic priest John Stamford, a Pye activist. How dare they call themselves activists? How dare they use that word? Who fled the UK for Amsterdam, where he published and managed the German Spartacus International Gay Guide. The magazine functioned as a shopping catalogue, tourist guidebook for international paedophiles who could arrange to meet up with the children advertised in the magazine. This is like Richard Kerr describes being trafficked from Kincora in Belfast to London, Liverpool, Rome, Venice, wherever these sick fucks had selected for him to be presented like a piece of meat. Disgusting. Disgusting. It's no wonder they refer to them with code names, like, as in Pizzagate, like chicken and pizza and pasta and so on, because that's all the children are to these monsters. It's just a delicacy. Okay, let's just carry on. The Spartacus International Gay Guide was distributed to paedophiles traveling to Europe, the Mediterranean, America, Africa, Asia, Australasia, and the USSR. Clarence Osborne. It's going to take me a while to read this book, folks, but it's worth it. I hope you find it's worth it. I'm so grateful, and I'm so glad to corroborate much of this. Personally corroborate much of this. Brisbane court stenographer Clarence Henry Howard Osborne was Australia's contact point for senior PI figures, including John Stanford. Osborne took photos of Brisbane children that appeared in German and English paedophile magazines, including Spartacus International Gay Guide. Clarence Osborne organised for international paedophile tourists to meet up with Brisbane children whose photographs he had placed in the Spartacus International Gay Guide. This was going on in the north of Ireland as well. Apparently, the Provisional IRA helped organise these paedo-tourism parties, accessing children that had been advertised, both from Kincora Children's Homes and others, and traffic from Dublin up to the north for these purposes. And I believe Hampstead is on the international circuit. Hampstead, Portugal. They're all on the circuit. It's a party circuit to them. It's a party circuit. In 1973, the Public Service Board conducted 2 secret inquiries into Clarence Osborne. Resultingly, Gough Whitlam's ALP government transferred Clarence Osborne to the Hansard Bureau at Parliament House in Canberra. They just transferred it. Brackets, Fiona says, I was trafficked to a paedophile party held inside Parliament House during Clarence Osborne's placement there. Clarence Osborne committed suicide in 1979 after police raided his house. Police discovered thousands of pictures of naked children, hundreds of hours of tape-recorded conversations with boys, and a meticulously organised filing cabinet filled with index cards bearing the details of his victims, from their names, ages, and addresses to their physical measurements. It's like stamp collecting to them. It's like stamp collecting or train spotting. It was later estimated that Osborne had been involved with more than 2,500 underaged males, that's children, over a 20-year period. 2,500 victims of one pervert. Incredibly, Osborne and his voluminous files were never thoroughly investigated by police. According to officers who viewed the Osborne material at the time, the names on the index cards, so dutifully recorded by Osborne, were not only those of the boys he had seduced, but adults, members of the judiciary, the legal profession, politicians, academics, and even police officers. They target these people to keep it in place and to create what we have today, which is this international child trafficking ring in the courts, aided by social services and police. With sexual interest in children, one former officer said the Osborne material was enough to bring down the then Queensland government overnight. Osborne shared his paedophile materials with Australia's leading criminologist and ABC radio regular Paul Wilson, who wrote a book defending Clarence Osborne. At the University of Queensland during the 80s, Paul Wilson organised a pro-paedophilia conference and showed a child porn snuff film to his psychology class. Bond University published Paul Wilson's pro-paedophile articles on their website until Wilson was charged with historical child sexual assault. Quote, by the early 1980s, the Osborne case had been all but forgotten. Isn't that nice? And many of the diminutive stenographer's secrets were presumed lost with him. Except a retired Queensland police officer with a conscience and a phenomenal memory who wanted to pursue Osborne at the time and was warned off by senior officers, and who received a death threat after he pushed the paedophile investigation too far, only to be drummed out of the force. He never forgot the case. And in breaking his silence, he would link Osborne to an international paedophile ring and the child abuse scandal currently rocking Westminster in the UK. This was last year that Fiona wrote. Maybe the year before, because it was published last year. Jimmy Savile, who associated closely with Prime Ministers Edward Heath and Margaret Thatcher, and with whom I'm photographed, like hundreds of thousands of others, because I fundraised for Jim Will Fix It. I fundraised for Stoke Mandeville Hospital, and he was the head of it. So it was simply a check presentation photograph, which was horrible. He was creepy, and I reported that to the inquiry into him. But of course, the trolls use it to say I was his cohort, which couldn't be further from the truth. I was likely his victim as well. Okay, let's just keep, this is a God thing. I hope this is okay with you, Fiona, that I keep interrupting, but look, I'm just corroborating. I'll start again. Jimmy Savile, who associated closely with Prime Ministers Edward Heath and Margaret Thatcher. Of course he did. He spent 12 Christmases. You know, it's even alleged that he might be the child of Dennis Thatcher, Margaret's husband. I've seen photographs of Dennis, Jimmy, and the other son, Mark, and the likenesses are shocking, you know, so who knows what was going on there. Was linked to the Pi child trafficking operation. Initial allegations against Savile were satanic ritual abuse in nature, but the press downgraded this to a plain vanilla story. Of course they did. Pro-paedophile mouthpiece, The Telegraph, led the propaganda charge with quotes like, oh, satanic ritual abuse does not exist. It's like alien abduction. The quoted female barrister, I wonder who that was. I bet she's connected to Hoaxted. I bet she's known to the likes of Barbara Hewson and Sarah Phillimore and Karen Irving. The quoted female barrister advocated for lowering the age of consent to 13, as did Melvie, not charging paedophiles with historical crimes because it was, quote, too late. She employed the term moral panic to dismiss victim testimony. Of course she did. Quoting a female paedophile defender is effective because the public do not realize how many females, including barristers, are involved in Luciferian paedophile cults. The quote plain vanilla account pushed by UK media involved 13 police stations which gathered reports from 589 victims, 450 of whom claimed abuse by Savile. The abuse implicated the BBC and 32 government hospitals. Stoke Mandeville, Broadmoor, they get Rampton probably. A 2014 National Health Service report concluded Savile raped public hospital patients over several decades, including children, adults, and dead bodies, with the knowledge and support of government authorities. Nurses felt so helpless to stop Savile, they warned hospitalized children to feign sleep to avoid Savile raping them during his late-night ward rounds. Savile even assaulted hospital staff and visitors. Further, politicians and civil servants appointed unqualified Jimmy Savile to run Broadmoor Psychiatric Unit, where he boldly assaulted staff, raped patients, and invited high-profile associates to watch women shower. To date, the British government has failed to explain how one grub wielded such influence and terror without the backing of Westminster paedophiles. Stephen George has a couple of books written. She was, well, it was a she. She now identifies as a he. She was an adopted child of a Tory MP, and he sexually abused her and then tried to introduce her to his friends, and at age about 9 she just wouldn't cooperate, so he put her in a mental institution where she was trapped for 28 years, including in Broadmoor, including being victimized by paedophile after paedophile after paedophile and being called crazy, all because she would not become meat for her Conservative MP father and his friends. She's written 2 books. I recommend you find them. Stephen George, Steven George. Jimmy, and he is still tortured and tormented and targeted. My age, 60, maybe even a bit older. I'm 63. Stephen is probably even 64, 5, and still targeted and tortured and tormented for the truth. For the truth that she's told in her books. Jimmy Savile was implicated in the abuse of children at tax paedophile haven Jersey Island, where residents' front yards proudly display statues of very young children performing oral sex on erect penises, plus a 12-foot statue of Satan as paedophile Pan. The entire island population, including police, judiciary. Now, you've got to give Bill Maloney his kudos here for some seeing Satan. You do. Social services and journalists were complicit to the ritual rape, torture, and murder of children at the island's children's home, Haute de la Garenne. It's spelt wrong here, but it doesn't matter. Where police found buried remains of multiple children, plus a kill room featuring shackles, a blood-stained concrete tub, a lime bath, and incinerator full of children's dismembered body parts. Senior police, including Scotland Yard, blocked investigations of most of the 151 perpetrators identified by 192 victims who made 1,776 statements. A few low-level staff were charged, while all VIPs and those accused of satanic ritual abuse escaped police investigation. Anyone who tried to expose the Luciferian pedophile child trafficking operation was arrested or murdered, including Diana, sister of Bill Maloney, and there's a question mark, but who produced a documentary, Sun, Sea, Satan, about the ritual abuse the siblings experienced on Jersey Island. Prime Minister Edward Heath, closely associated with Jimmy Savile, whose nephew Guy Marsden testified that Ted Heath his nephew testified that Ted Heath sexually assaulted a boy at a London party. Edward Heath was, now that's interesting. Is that the same nephew that keeps speaking up for Edward Heath? Maybe he's got two. Edward Heath was also implicated in the rape and murder of Jersey Island children aboard his yacht, the Morning Cloud. Of course he was. I'm going to end it there. I'm not going to rush this, guys, because it's too important. If this takes me a year, it's a labour of truth. And well done, Fiona. And there's no music to lighten the load of that. So if you're triggered, make sure you take some time out and be good to yourself. God bless. Check the links, Angela Power Disney. And check Fiona's, I'll put the link to the free book. And check her website blog, Paedophiles Down Under, PEDO, spelt the Australian way. I might be pedos down under, but anyway, you'll find it. Fiona Barnett. God bless people. Please share this.